I knew of a young girl who wanted to give her life entirely for Jesus. And for that, she desired to be a missionary in Africa. She wanted to go right to where the tribals were, the cannibals were. And she wanted to preach Jesus to the cannibals, which meant you could be eaten alive any time. You could be slayed by the sword. You could be ripped apart. And this is what she desired. But she was not able to go to Africa to be a missionary. How many of you want to be a missionary? Can I have a show of hands? How many of you want to be a missionary? Can you wave your hands like this so you're able to see? Beautiful, beautiful. So this girl really desired, but she was not able to go to Africa. It's Africa she wanted to go to. In course of time, she studied, she went to college, and then she got married. And when she got married, she was, in this whirlpool of activities. And, you know how things get tough. You're juggling with so many things. You have to take care of the things in the house, the children, and what the husband is asking for. And, she was caught in this. And probably, the washing machine stopped working. So, slowly the clothes are piling up. And perhaps she's hoping that, the mechanic will come soon and repair it. And finally the mechanic comes and says, no, you have to buy a new washing machine. There's no money to buy a new washing machine right then. And the clothes are piling up to the point that, it may fall on them. And so she has to wash the clothes, and then she's angry. I have to wash the clothes, and after washing all these clothes with my hand, after all, my family members will think, Mom, that's your duty. That's what you're here for, right? We go to school, and you're supposed to take care of the clothes part of it, And they probably won't even know that she spent hours in washing it with her hand and rinsing it. And then all that anger, really getting angry with what's happening in life, Then she heard a soft, gentle voice, of the Lord asking her, didn't you want to become a missionary in Africa? Did you want to, spread the gospel in that way? Weren't you ready for martyrdom? You were ready to be cut apart. You were ready to be roasted on fire. You were ready to be eaten by the cannibals. Didn't you want to go to Africa? Weren't you the one who asked me to want to go to Africa? And then she realized what the Lord was trying to tell her. The Lord was trying to tell her, you wanted to go to Africa, there's a point in our life sometimes when we love Jesus, and then we come to this point where we ask Jesus, give me crosses, right? But the problem is we have crosses of our choices. So this girl wanted to go to Africa. Perhaps she would be martyred, and her name would come out in the front page of the newspaper, Indian martyr in Africa. And her family members would think, oh no, if only I had taken a button from her blouse as a relic. Now she's a martyr, and that's someone from our own family, and I missed all that. Only if I had have, made those cups of tea for her without complaining. Only if I would have been pleasant and sweet to her. My sister, is a martyr. They would all fancy her, and her statue would be there in a local parish, and they would say, this person came to this church. You see, when we ask Jesus for crosses, we ask crosses of our own choices. But finally, when Jesus gives us crosses, we're shocked, we're startled, I don't want this cross, because you see, a cross always surrounds us with darkness. A cross always creates confusion. And a cross strikes you where you don't want to be struck. That's the problem with the cross, you see. So when Jesus sends you a cross, we say, not this. What are you doing? Jesus, definitely not this. And we feel deceived. This is not the cross I asked for. I asked for those crosses, where I will be slain and, boiled like St. Lawrence on the grid. And, I'll definitely tell them, turn me over. So those were the crosses we asked for. When the washing machine broke down, we were not ready to take it, you see. But Jesus said, what did he say? Sorry, there's no holiness without the cross. If you want to be my disciple, take up your pancakes, take up your, dumbbells, take up your, what did he say? Take up your coffee mug. What did he say? Take up your Facebook. Take up your cross and follow me. Unless you take up your cross, you cannot, and follow me, you cannot be my disciples. So Jesus is very clear about it. And so we have a cross is necessary if you have to go into holiness. All of us are called to holiness. Friends, holiness is like the real gold and diamonds that you find right under the earth, maybe kilometers under the earth, you find the real gold and diamonds. And this is what holiness is. And you see, it's there for everybody. Everybody can take it. But not everybody is going to keep digging at it. You have to keep digging at it. And sometimes you're going to hit hard rock. And you have to be ready to chisel through the rock. And sometimes you get, dirty muck. And you'll have to, you get hard crusts. And you'll have to keep digging. So the gold and silver is out there for anyone who can search for it, dig deep enough. But the problem is not many of us will dig deep. So when that's what holiness is, like that real gold and diamonds that you find under the earth. So what will happen? We all want to be holy, right? If I ask you, not one of you will say, no, I don't want to be holy. I want to stay impure and I want to, really be unholy. None of you will say that, because you're created for great things. You're created for holiness. But the problem is, friends, in order to be holy, there is a problem, because inside of us, our flesh, inside of us, we have this horror for suffering. When it comes to suffering, it's like the video games that we play. You see these video games, there are landmines, and you have to control. With that joystick, you have to control. So this man who's running, so you have to make him run in such a way that he avoids all the landmines. So this is pretty much our life. We're controlling our life like a video game. When it comes to suffering, when we meet people who are uncomfortable, when we know if I take up this task, I'm definitely going to face problems here. I'm definitely going to face humiliations. My parents are going to ask me hard questions. I'm definitely going to get on the wrong side of people. I'm going to rub people the wrong side. And therefore, it's like video game. I see suffering there and I go here. And I see suffering there and I turn here. So it's basically we are controlling our lives like a video game. But if we knew that particular suffering planted there is a diamond mine, if I knew, would I avoid it? I am trying to avoid it because I think that's problem. It's problem. I don't want it. This darkness, it's confusion is going to strike me exactly where I don't want to be struck. So I'm going to avoid it. But the moment I know it's diamonds, I'm going to go for it. Like what did the saints say? Saint Ignatius of Loyola. What did he say? He says, it's true that I love suffering very much, but he says, I'm not sure whether I'm worthy of that honor. See, for him, suffering was an honor that God would, give me a diamond mine. Well, I really love it, but I'm really not sure whether I'm worthy of this honor. Say, Saint Rose of Lima, she saw a vision. Jesus showed her a vision. What vision? She saw Jesus busy holding a weighing scale in his hand, two plates that way, weighing scale. And Jesus, on one weighing scale, he had crosses, okay? And on the other weighing scale, he had, corresponding to one particular cross, he had the same weight, he had graces, he had heavenly treasures, wisdom, understanding, okay? So he would go to one person, and then the cross, maybe a 25-kilo cross that he wanted to give a particular young girl, he would put that cross on one weighing scale, and corresponding to that, the 25 kilos of graces, of blessings, of heavenly favors, he would weigh it, and then he said, okay, yeah, for you, cross. And the other person, again, he'll weigh it. So she said, if you knew the weighing scale that God uses to weigh out crosses to you, she said, you would not complain about it, but rather you would rejoice. When you think of your crosses, you would rejoice, say, yeah. That's what you would say when God has given you crosses. Amen? Amen? all the crosses in your life, exactly what makes you uncomfortable, exactly what has humiliated you, exactly what has bowed down your head, exactly what makes you feel really, really, really miserable, to know that when God weighed that for you, correspondingly, the weight of that's weighing down on your heart. And there were times when you suffered loneliness. There were times when your friends did not understand you. They said exactly what will hurt you. Their attitude was like a cold war, and you didn't know why they were behaving like that. That was even a greater cross, right? But now you know that every cross God gives you, correspondingly, God has given the corresponding grace. And rather, maybe you were looking for short-term pleasures. And did you know you got those short-term pleasures, but did you know exactly what those short-term pleasures were? They were disguised long-term misery. Certain relationships that you wanted, you said, oh, only if I get into this relationship, short-term pleasure, because you were seeking for that short-term pleasure, but what you invited into your life is long-term misery. So what were you doing? You were confusing pleasure for happiness. And maybe you'll say, no, but I did get real happiness. But let me tell you, that was only the real happiness. You said, I did get real happiness. That happiness was only a shadow of happiness. So you see, if Pope Francis was standing here and, his shadow fell down, if I grab his shadow, if he's standing on the other side of a glass wall, and I grab his shadow and said, I got it. That shadow, it's not the real person. It's not the actual person, right? It's only the shadow of Pope Francis. I've only got the shadow. So we confuse pleasure with happiness, and the real happiness that we think we've got, by surrounding ourselves with material possessions, because we have the philosophy of having, not of being. We think if I have certain things, I will be happy, not if I am a certain person. So I'm not getting the actual person, I'm only getting the shadow. So you see, all of us, most of our lives could be spent in chasing shadows. We have been chasing shadows of happiness. We've not come to the actual happiness, to the real happiness. We've been chasing a shadow, and we wasted years chasing a shadow, and probably now we continue to chase a shadow. No, we don't want to chase a shadow. We want to chase the exact thing. The actual person is what we want. We really want happiness. And where do I get this happiness? You see, friends, there's a lot of material prosperity. But if you see, as the material prosperity is rising, the internal and mental discontent is also rising. The number of hospitals will say that the beds that is being used by mental patients are on the rise. In some hospital, 51% of the beds are being used for mental patients. So how is it that as material prosperity is rising, why is this internal discontent rising as well? So it tells us that happiness can't be found, prosperity is not the reason of this discontent. So what is the reason? What is the reason? I have failed to become somebody. I'm relying on what I have. I'm not looking at what is inside, what I should grow to be in the inside, the awareness of who I am in my insides. So what can I do? How can I go forward from this point? How can I go forward? You see, my dear brothers and sisters, how do I need to take care of my body? St. Augustine gives us a clue. He says, take care of your body as if you are going to live forever. Meaning to say there's no much urgency. Okay? You have a frizzy hair. It's not so urgent to straighten it. You could straighten it, but it's not urgent, you see. You're going to live forever. As if you're going to live forever. But he says, take care of your soul as if you're going to die tomorrow. That's the urgency with which we have to take care of our soul. And how do I take care of my soul? This is what St. Augustine is saying. You see, there was a saint called St. Peter of Alcantara, that's in Spain. He was a confessor to St. Teresa of Avila. who reformed the church along with St. John of the Cross. So St. Peter of Alcantara, he made a contract with his body. He said, I have made a contract with my body. It has promised. So he told body, listen, we're going to shake hands. We're going to make a contract. What is the contract? He says, and he made his body promise him to accept harsh treatment. He says, I made my body. It has promised to accept harsh treatment from me on earth. So he told the body, as long as you are on earth with me, I promise you, you're going to get harsh treatment. And he says, I have promised, he also promised the body that it shall receive eternal rest in heaven. When we die, our bodies are decayed, but it is transformed, it is glorified, and later on united to the soul, right? So this is what Peter of Alcantara said. So what did he do? He made a contract with his body. He says, here on earth, you're going to get harsh treatment from me. So even though he was superior, he used to wash the dishes. He used to collect the firewood, chop the trees. Difficult job. Out there in the sun, you have to chop the trees, collect it, arrange it, and carry it. He used to do all that. Though he didn't need to do that, his work, he could have said, well, that's not my work. The others do it, and I do this paperwork or consultation, or I go for meetings. No, and he gave himself, we are told, only 90 minutes rest in a night. So that's the contract he made with his body. So don't complain. He would have told his body, now I've made a contract with you. And the body would complain, no, remember the contract? I'm going to treat you harshly now. And later on, you will get eternal rest in heaven. So you see, he was able to bloom in his soul. Because what does a cross do for us if we accept crosses? Any kind of crosses in our life, if you accept crosses, not like the young girl who wanted to go to Africa. She only wanted to be a martyr and slain and eaten by cannibals in Africa, not to wash the clothes when the washing machine was down. To be ready to do anything, to accept whatever God sends in whichever way that he sends it. As St. Teresa of Calcutta, as we know, Mother Teresa, what did she say? She said, we are at Jesus' disposal. How many of you can say that you are at the disposal of Jesus? Can you lift up your hands? How many of you want to tell Jesus, Jesus, I'm at your disposal. You can do what you want with me. Lift up your hands if you desire to say this. Beautiful. So this was Mother Teresa's prayer. Jesus, I'm at your disposal. So when you want to see a movie, your mother will insist that you wash the plates. A lot of plates. Party last night. And you have to wash all those plates. Okay, Jesus, use me as you want in everything, right? So what did Mother Teresa of Calcutta say? She said, we are at Christ's disposal. If he wants you to be sick in bed, so be it. If he wants you to proclaim his work in the streets, if he wants you to clean the toilets all day, clean the toilets. You see, all the rooms that we've occupied, when we leave, there will be some ladies who will clean the toilets. All day they will clean the toilets. And many of them, I've spoken to some of them, and they actually don't need to come to do this job, because their family members are earning. But they said, we've got to love cleaning toilets. One of the ladies who cleaned the toilets told me that. She says, she at first, it was difficult for her to clean the toilets because she wanted to be a volunteer. And when years back, she came to the father then. The father said, you want to be a volunteer? Okay, can you clean the toilets? She says, yes. She was so eager to be a volunteer. And then she said it was difficult for her. And she prayed for the grace. And every toilet that she would clean, everything that she would see. And, she would tell Jesus, I'm offering it for those who've come for retreat this week. And she said she got this beautiful grace, to love cleaning toilets. So Mother Teresa says, if Jesus wants you to clean toilets all day, that's all right. Everything is all right. We must say, I belong to you. You can do whatever you like. So This is what we should tell Jesus. You can do, I belong to you. You can do whatever you like. Can you lift up your right hand and say that? Jesus. Out loud. Jesus. Raise your voices real loud. Jesus. I belong to you. I belong to you. You can do whatever you like. Jesus, I belong to you. You can do whatever you like. Amen. You just said it, right? And remember, Jesus answers prayer. Are you particular that Jesus should answer this prayer? Jesus, prepare me for this prayer. I'm not ready. If you answer this prayer, you take time. You see if I'm ready for it. Okay. So friends, what should be? You see, basically, you and me are more. We have a greater capacity for pain than for pleasure. Are you surprised when I say this? Are you surprised that we have a greater capacity for pain than for pleasure? Sometimes our pleasure can turn into pain. For example, when someone tickles you, after some time you're saying, stop, 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 isn't it? So hasn't that pleasure turned into pain? And you see, there's something with pleasure. Pleasure goes up and up and up. Very soon it goes up. It's like a steep mountainside. It goes up and up and up, and then there's a sharp fall, you see? So pleasure peaks and then there's a sharp fall. So pleasure doesn't endure for long. And you get that high, you hit that high. Those who go into pornography, they hit that high. And the next time they have to hit that same high, the very same dirty book they saw or the video that they watched would not give them that high. They need a video with fresh content, which is even more, which is even more perverted to give them that same high. And they're always looking for a stimulus that is greater, because this is what pleasure is. So you see, we have a greater capacity for pain. For instance, some people will come and tell us, my father has been on the sick bed, paralyzed and in pain for the last 28 years. 28 years. And you think, how can they go through one day of suffering, of pain, of being rushed to the hospital and back, and, the body being racked with pain. But you see, when we think, how can we endure 1 hour of pain? People endure a whole day of pain, a whole month of pain, a whole year of pain, and then years of pain. It goes on. So we have a greater capacity of pain. It's as if God is, trying to make us exhaust our pain here on earth. Because you see, the life to come, what does the book of Revelation say? There shall be no more tears. Okay? So the life to come is a life of happiness. And that is why we see pleasure is short-lived here, because there is yet a time to come, a life to come, which will be full of heavenly pleasures. So here we have a greater capacity of pain, and it's as if we are exhausting our pain here, all the pain exhausted here. So the life to come, it is eternal bliss and eternal happiness. So friends, what is our reaction? Basically, what is our reaction to pain? You see, during the Second World War, in Auschwitz, one of the concentration camps, there was an anatomy professor. And this professor, he was desperate. He was so dejected because of the sufferings, and they were treated in an inhuman way. The same bowl that they used to eat food from is the same bowl that they have to use when they go to the toilet. And if they see their parents being slain before them, mercilessly belted and beaten, left to die, they were not supposed to take a step to help their parents. So that was the situation in Auschwitz. So, when people came in, they had their identity cards, their photos. But they found in Auschwitz that in 3 weeks' time, 3 weeks were enough, 3 weeks' time, and definitely within 3 months, they were so different from their photos in the identity card that they could no longer identify them. So they stopped using those photo IDs. So they used numbers. You see, Maxwell Colby had a number. So then they were identified in that way. So this anatomy professor was so dejected. And being an anatomy professor, he knew the best and easiest way of committing suicide. He knew which particular vein in his body to cut so that he would instantaneously start bleeding and he would die very soon. So he managed to take hold of a razor, and he was determined. And when the officer was not around, he went to a particular room there, and he was determined to commit suicide. And the only problem was there was not enough light in that room. So he took a bench that was there, and he drew it closer to the wall, and he noticed that there was a ventilator on top from which some amount of light came in, because basically this meant to be a prison. It actually military barracks. So he stood on the bench in order to, see which vein he's going to cut and exactly to cut it, because he wanted to die. And when he did that, when he stood on the bench, he happened to see, what did he see? He saw outside, through the ventilator he could see outside, and he noticed that it was spring. He noticed that there were fresh buds that had bloomed into flowers on the tree. And that moment, this anatomy professor stopped on his tracks. He threw the blade down because there was hope inside of him. What came to him? It came to him that this, as seasons change, the winter, the harsh winter, changes into autumn. And so he told himself, now this is only a season, this season of suffering, of loneliness, of being deprived. It's only a season. It's going to pass. And probably when the war will end, I will be united with my family. Or if I die here, there will be a time when I will be free from all this, where there will be no tears. And that gave hope to him. That gave purpose to his suffering. And he was able, he was, for many years, he had seen the spring and, autumn, and that didn't make much difference in his life. But now, having gone through this suffering, this intense suffering, the spring had a new value for him. Relationships had a new value for him. Now he had a purpose of living life anew, afresh. There was a purpose for him. There was had a surge to live out a new life, a spring in his life, a springtime in his life, and he was exuberant inside of him. And of course, he survived the war to live to tell the tale. So friends, I can meet sufferings in my life, the cross in my life, in two ways. If I see purpose in that suffering, then I am resigned to it. I say, yes, there is something good that will come out of it. Maybe 2 more years of suffering, 3 more years of suffering, but something good is going to come out of it. And so I accept it. If I do not see the suffering, and that suffering is like a curtain to me, an opaque curtain, not a transparent curtain, opaque curtain. I don't see anything beyond that. I only see that black curtain. I don't see through that curtain. Then what am I going to do? I am going to rebel. I will be angry with the authorities. I will make a group and I will gossip and say, see, this person is so bad. Because you see no purpose in that suffering. You want to fight back. You're bitter. You're angry. You are filled with jealousy, you're filled with hatred, so you become a rebel. So friends, so Christ is calling you to see the purpose of that suffering. Saint Peter says, your present affliction, there's nothing, you cannot compare this present affliction, this present suffering to the eternal joys that are reserved for you. So it is, in that way, God is not good at weighing, because, our sufferings compared to the joys we are going to get, in the weighing scale, it doesn't match. So I would say God is, in that sense, God is not good with his weighing scales. When he, for every suffering that we are going through now, there will be eternal bliss in proportion to it. Maybe you are suffering to convert somebody in your life, and you see hardly any change. And you're taking so much of an effort. You're enduring, whatever harm that person is doing to you. You're persevering, you're fasting, you're praying. But you hardly see any fruit. Don't be discouraged, my dear brothers and sisters. Because you see, God is going to reward you. Not for the fruit of what you're doing. Because you may not see the fruits. You may see scanty fruits. And you think, what's the use of all that I've done? The tribulations and sufferings I've gone through. Remember, God is going to reward you for the effort. He's going to reward you for according to your effort, not according to the fruit. God will give the fruit whenever He wants to give the fruit. So do not be sad thinking of it. Praise the Lord.